Holly, and I want to welcome you to A Moment in the Word, and I want to welcome you back to our series entitled Embracing the Call to Honor Others. This is the third week in our series, and if you haven't listened to the first two episodes yet, you don't need to worry. You'll find the links to both of those in the episode description below. But today, we're exploring what it means to honor others through service. Let me ask you a question. What if greatness wasn't measured by achievement, but by how well we serve and lift up others? That's the kind of greatness that Jesus talked about, a definition that radically shifts how we typically view or think about success. Let me take you to Mark chapter 10. Here we find James and John approaching Jesus with this bold request. They want to sit at his right hand and his left hand in glory. In Hebrew culture, these were the two most honored seats. It's almost like they're asking to be his vice president and chief of staff in his new kingdom. They were still thinking in terms of power and prestige, assuming that Jesus was about to set up a new political kingdom. But Jesus, he's going to flip their idea of greatness completely upside down. He takes that time to remind them how the Romans ruled, with power, with control, and with fear. And then he's going to say something to them that I'm assuming is completely unexpected. He states, "But it shall be so among you. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave to all." You see, in God's kingdom, greatness looks like servanthood. And that's what we're diving into today. When I first started putting this series together, I focused it on Romans 12:10, which says, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love and give preference to one another in honor." Here, Paul is giving a series of short commands describing what Christian life should look like, especially how we are called to live among other believers. You see, we are brothers and sisters adopted into God's family through Jesus Christ, and we are instructed to honor one another. This word that Paul uses, honor, is the Greek word tome, which means to show deference, reverence, or value. In previous episodes, we explored how we honor others by casting off our pride and walking in humility. And we also looked at how we should be looking at people the way God sees them. Today, we add another layer to this, because today we're talking about how we honor others through serving them. This theme of service runs throughout the Bible because the Bible centers on the greatest servant of all, Jesus Christ. He himself said, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for the many." These words came immediately after James and John had made their request for power. But instead of talking about self-glory, Jesus calls them to self-sacrifice. See, humble service is the prerequisite for leadership in God's kingdom. Jesus didn't just teach about service. He modeled it for us. And when he is the Lord of our lives, his authority will be shown through our actions. Mark 9:35 says, "If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all." 1 Peter 4:10 tells us, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace." And finally, John 15:12 tells us, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." That word, love, Jesus, when he uses it here, is not talking about an emotional or a sentimental love. It's a practical love. It's about choosing to act lovingly even when we don't feel like it, and even when the people around us don't act very lovable. That night that Jesus spoke these words, He demonstrated it. He modeled it firsthand by washing his disciples' feet, including Judas, the very one who is going to betray him just a short time after that. See, when Jesus took up the towel, he assumed the role of the lowliest servant, an act of ultimate humility and the living embodiment of Isaiah's suffering servant from Isaiah 53. And when he finished, he told them, "For I have given you an example, that you also should do just as I have done to you." This is the command. Jesus wasn't suggesting a behavior. He was showing us the very way we are called to live. Greatness is not about climbing higher. It's about kneeling lower. And the world will absolutely try to convince you otherwise. You'll hear things like, "You're too busy to serve," or "Don't worry about it, someone else will step in," or "You've got enough on your plate, don't worry about this." But notice, in Jesus' command, there is no, quote, "unless." He doesn't say, "Love one another unless your schedule is packed." And it doesn't say, "Serve one another unless your kids are in every extracurricular activity imaginable." Nope. We are called to serve, and we are all gifted by God to do it, especially within our church family. Look around your Christian community, your local church. Is service shared by everyone? Or is it the same few people carrying the load every single week? Jesus calls us to participate, not out of guilt, but out of love. Not to earn recognition, but to honor others and reflect Him. This is what it means to honor others through service. So this week, what I'd like you to do is look for one opportunity to serve someone in a way that costs you something, whether it's your time, your comfort, or your resources. Maybe it's stepping up to help even when it's inconvenient. Maybe it's encouraging someone who feels unseen. Or maybe it's simply showing kindness when it would be easier just to walk away. We got to ask ourselves, am I serving out of obligation or out of love? Remember, Jesus didn't serve because he had to. He served because he loved us. So, choose that one specific act of service this week that stretches you. Write it down, pray about it, and then do it. Not for recognition, but as an act of honor to others and an act of worship to God. And if you'd like a reference from Scripture that you can meditate on this week, how about Philippians 2, verses 3 through 4? "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Let each of you not only look to his own interests, but also the interests of others." Spend time reading and reflecting on Philippians 2 this week. It's a powerful picture of how Jesus humbled himself to serve and how we are called to have that exact same mindset. Next week, we're going to dive into what it means to honor people even in conflict. Romans 12:18 tells us, "If possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." We'll talk about how to navigate disagreement with grace. But until then, walk humbly, love deeply, and honor greatly. Have a blessed week.